Carter County. Good evening, I'm Sarah Diamond. Elizabethton Fire Chief Barry Carrier says Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his wife were on the plane that crashed this afternoon around 3:40 this afternoon. 5 people were on board the plane at the time of that crash. Highway 91 near the airport is currently shut down. Police are asking everyone to avoid that area. We have team coverage beginning right now. Justin Soto joins us live on scene with the latest. Justin?
Well, Sarah, it's been just over an hour since Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s plane crashed here at the Elizabethton Airport. Let me give you a closer look at the scene here. My photographer, Andy, is going to zoom in. As you can see, we have dozens of law enforcement here on scene. And as you can tell, the plane is pretty much sitting right in the middle of the road. I'm sure you can see it here. You see, I would imagine that's the engine there on the right-hand side, as well as the wing sticking out on the left. But that's really all you can make out at this hour of the plane. Really barely an engine and barely a wing of this plane that crashed here at the end of the runway around 3:40 this afternoon here at the Elizabethton Airport. We reached out to the FAA. Here's the narrative that they've been telling us as of right now. We know a Cessna Citation rolled off the end of runway 24 and caught fire after landing at the airport here at 3:40. Preliminary indication is that 2 pilots and 3 passengers were aboard this plane, and we do know tonight that this was Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s plane. His wife was also aboard, as well as their child, according to his mother and social media reports from his mother this afternoon. And we're awaiting more information from the sheriff's office. We have the Carter County Sheriff's Office on scene, Elizabethton Police Department on scene, as well as fire agencies. When we first arrived on scene, there's actually a little bit of a waterway here on our left-hand side. We saw a piece of the plane still on fire and smoking in that waterway. Here on scene, we saw people kind of stepping back away from it because you could feel the heat from that fire as that piece of the plane was still burning and smoking as fire crews were working to put out that fire here on scene. And again, we're told 5 people were on board, including Dale Earnhardt Jr. This was his plane here that went off the runway here at the Elizabethton Police Department. And we are also told that Dale Earnhardt Jr. is in the hospital. We're unclear on the condition at this time, but we do know from airport officials that everyone was able to get off the plane okay, but we're still awaiting to learn more about Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s condition after this crash here this afternoon. Again, we're told everyone is okay. And on my left-hand side, I want to show you, we have the Workforce Development Complex here right across from this plane crash site. And we've been speaking to a few people who work in that building. None of them wanted to go on camera. They were a little bit shaken up when I went up to them earlier today, but they have been telling me that they really didn't think anything was wrong. They saw a plane that was flying low, but of course, we're right next to the airport. That's not an uncommon scene at the airport to see a plane flying low. Of course, really just feet away from the airport. They were telling me they saw a plane flying low, and then all of a sudden they heard a loud crashing noise, and the road is right here. So people in that building were telling me they thought it was a car crash of some sort since the road is right here. But once they actually went up to the windows and saw the scene that was unfolding outside of their office building, they realized that it was in fact a plane that crashed here at the end of the runway and was on fire. And I'm told that agencies responded within seconds here to start putting out that fire, and they saw people running off the plane, and they, I would imagine, saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. running off that plane, but at the time they didn't know it was him. They also saw a dog, and they saw those 4 other people. Again, we know 5 people were on board the plane at the time of this crash. And here back at the scene, we do have some crime scene tape that's kind of littered here in the grass here. As you can tell, this investigation has spanned really this roadway as well as the scene here on our left-hand side. You see the waterway here that I was talking about earlier. That's where we saw a piece of the plane that was on fire and smoking when we first arrived here on scene. As you can tell now, they've been able to put out that piece of the plane, the fire that was on that piece of the plane here on the waterway. And of course, we're going to continue to learn more about this investigation. We're also going to be speaking to investigators and the sheriff's office to learn more about what exactly unfolded here this afternoon. Sarah, I'll send it back to you for now.
Justin Soto live at the Elizabethton Airport. Thanks, Justin. News Channel 11 Sports Director Kenny Hawkins joins us now with more on Dale Jr. Not something we want to see on race week, Kenny.
No, you're correct, Sarah. We don't want to see it because we remember this all too well. Back in 1993, April 1st, Alan Kowicki, in approach to Tri-Cities Airport. Obviously, he did not make it, and he, along with 3 others on the plane, died there in Blountville. And that, like we said, that was April 1st, 1993. Of course, you know, when we heard that, that was one of the first things that came to mind. And the good news is that Dale and his wife are doing okay. Of course, Dale retired from NASCAR just just a couple of years ago. He's down in the booth calling racing for NASCAR. He does it in the second half of the season. Dale Jr., of course, has a scholarship in the area. One of the many things that was awarded to him on his retirement at Bristol a couple of years ago. Dale Jr., as of last year, of course, now it's Chase Elliott, while he was still driver, the most popular driver in NASCAR. I mean, I don't know if you can find any driver more loved than obviously his father, Dale Sr., who lost his life on the racetrack in Daytona several years ago. But Dale Jr. used to come here as a kid. We used to interview him when he was a kid, when he used to come here with his father while he was testing. So that was the scary part when we heard about another plane crash going down around race time here at Bristol. Was took us back to that 1993 incident with Alan Kowicki. Sarah?
Kenny Hawkins with some more perspective about Dale Jr. in our newsroom tonight. Thank you, Kenny. You're watching News Channel 11 at 5. Continuing coverage now of the Elizabethton plane crash. Let's go live now to Josh Smith, who is also live at the scene. Josh?
Sarah, we are just on the other side of the crash site from where Justin Soto was earlier, and I'm joined now by Carter County Sheriff Dexter Lunsford, who has some of the very latest information about what's happening. Sheriff, right over your shoulder here, something that I know has terrified a lot of people, and many people are very relieved. What can you tell us happened based on what you know?
Based on what we know, the plane was landing. It's a jet aircraft of some type. Somewhere close to the end of the runway, something mechanical happened, we think. The NTSB will be taking care of the investigation. And he ran off the end of the runway through a fence and onto the shoulder of Highway 91.
Did the plane make it onto the highway?
It did make it onto the one lane of the highway. There's a wing that's sticking out on part of the, about half of the highway. So he did a great job actually of keeping away from vehicles.
Okay.
So.
We have a bit of an obstructive view here because of planes, but if you and I could step out this way and maybe our camera could try to catch it. We're catching it now. Let's go back this way, Sheriff. What we're seeing is a crash site and then a little bit off to the left, and people are smelling it in the air, burning fuel. What happened with that?
It's the fuel from the aircraft. It got into the, there's a small stream that runs under Highway 91 in that area. And it's on top of the stream, so of course the best way of handling that, the fire chief tells me, just to let it burn out.
Okay.
That's the only thing you can do for it. You can't put water on water.
Right. Sheriff, we understand Dale Earnhardt Jr., his wife, his child, and 2 pilots, as well as a dog, were on the plane. We've heard that at least Dale Jr. has had to go to the hospital. What can you tell us about what you've heard about their injuries?
Well, I did talk to him.
You talked to Dale Jr.?
He was speaking.
Okay.
Standing next to him when he's on the stretcher. He's fine. Minor injuries, I think it's more maybe just precautionary more than anything else, but he was the only one that complained of any injuries that I'm aware of, and he was transported to the Johnson City Medical Center.
And that's a very personal moment. You're, as a law enforcement officer, are there with people in that very stressful moment of trauma, right. But as much as you can for so many people who are hearing this and who love him and love his family for what they've done for racing. You're saying that you came upon the scene and they had already put him on a stretcher at that point?
No, he was laying on the ground, okay. In a prone position on his back. Was absolutely alert, conscious. He's fine. Him and his family, there's no one that's suffered any serious injuries. And the NASCAR world needs to know that. Him and his family are fine.
I think you're helping to make a lot of people feel better about that right now. We heard he has been taken to the hospital, so that would be as a precaution. Is that from what you understand?
I'm not going to comment on any detail about his injuries because I don't know, but I saw no trauma. Yeah. He was alert, talking, cooperative, no problems whatsoever. Didn't appear to be.
Was he talking about just what had happened?
No, just not yes, no. Answering more questions from the EMS was what he was. His conversation.
He was just glad his family was okay since they were with him.
I'm sure, absolutely. It had to be no doubt in my mind. We've all been on an airplane. It had to be a terrorist or a terrifying situation. Yes.
Sheriff, planes coming in and out of here all the time. I know you've watched them all your life land at this airport, and for this weekend is typically a time when we see Dale Jr. and other drivers in and out of this airport, right?
Oh, yes, a lot of the NASCAR drivers, families, officials coming in and out of this airport during all the races because it's convenient, just a 20-minute drive. Mm-hmm. And yes, they'll put their helicopters and airplanes in the hangars here and transport them to to the raceway.
I heard a comment earlier, this is a small town airport, probably not enough room on the runway. This is actually suitable for jet service like this, right? There's plenty of room on this runway.
Yes, it's not as you see. If you look right there, there's a jet right there. If you look around, you'll see a few small jets. Nothing commercial and big, but it will handle small jet aircraft.
Sheriff, this plane is in bad shape from what you're hearing.
Totally destroyed, yes.
Okay. It must be very difficult to try to gauge how long we're going to be dealing with a crash site on a state highway. Do you have any information about that?
It will be closed until the NTSB and the FAA give us authority to clear it. It'll be blocked off totally. No one will be able to use 91, State Route 91 and they're probably 6 to 7 hours away from getting here.
Okay. So we're talking at least probably the rest of the day.
Probably tomorrow too.
Sheriff, as I look at this crash site, and I've just gotten here a few moments ago, I am amazed that some people made it out of there okay. Your perspective as somebody who rolled up and saw that, that no one was seriously hurt.
It actually, yes, it was in a flame, rather large flame as you can imagine, but your first thing when you look at that, I think it's not going to be good. But to find out that everybody's fine, no serious injuries, no vehicles hit. This is a very busy roadway. Yeah. We're very fortunate and blessed that no one was hurt.
And final question that I have for you, there is on the other side of that road a large lake, and you said there's a creek. Are we dealing with an environmental issue here?
No, they I don't know what the correct terminology is, but they have bellows and stuff lay on top of the stream to keep the fuel from getting into that. So that's not a concern at all.
Is there any other information that you think the public needs to know about tonight?
No, everyone's fine, and we'll clean up the mess.
And do you know there's going to be a media briefing? Is that what you're
There will be, yes. We'll be setting up a tent and a place here in a few minutes for the media because we're aware already this is going to draw national attention because of the occupants of the plane. And so we'll be taking care of that as soon as we get everything set up.
Sheriff Dexter Lunsford, thank you. We appreciate your time. I appreciate it. And I know you need to go. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And so as we continue, I think what we learned from the sheriff there was of significance that Dale Jr. was, in fact, on the ground. And whatever it was about that landing, there was something that made folks feel that he needed to be checked out, needed to be looked over, and needed to be secured at the hospital. And the great news is the sheriff says that he heard him speaking and that it does appear he is going to be in good shape. Now, the sheriff mentioned something, and I want to make sure you can get the visual on it. If we could just turn, I'm with our chief videographer, Philip Merle here, and we're going to do kind of a rapid turn here. But you can see here, there's a jet here. There are several jets here. The runway extends far up toward, as we would here call it, the mountainside or the north side of the runway. This would be the Stony Creek entrance as opposed to the city entrance. This is the normal entrance for planes onto this runway. And what we understand happened is that Dale Jr.'s plane is coming in from that direction, essentially. And he's coming down to this slope of the Holston Mountain here, and that he makes it onto this runway. And in essence, what should have happened is that plane should have been able to, in this range right in here where you're seeing the blue hangars, these are private aircraft hangars, very large personal private jets are stored here. It should have been able to stop there and then it seems turn at the bottom of the runway. But what happened, as you can see, is it did not. For whatever reason, and we're not close to apparently knowing the answer to that yet, that plane went through a fence and has now landed partially in Highway 91. And as the sheriff said, it is in essence destroyed. Now, if you look just to the left and maybe get a better view of it now, you're going to see smoke that's coming up from the ground. Even on both sides of the highway. And we were able to, when I first came 10 minutes ago, I got here, I thought the plane was still on fire. Not the case. What they're doing is, it seems, according to the sheriff, intentionally burning off jet fuel that spilled into a creek, which then went into a couple of ponds, which are nearby, I believe. And this would, of course, be very close to the Stony Creek, actually, that would then flow into the river, and the Watauga. It converges just upstream of here with the Watauga River. So we're dealing with, an important waterway. Good news from the sheriff. It does not appear that there is any sort of environmental impact that has taking place here today. What we are seeing is numerous county and city officials that are arriving here, and we're going to do our best to hear from them as we move through the next few minutes. But Sarah, good news, a lot of very relieved people here that Dale Earnhardt Jr., his family, 2 pilots, and we hear a dog are okay. We'll continue live coverage from here in Elizabethton. Now back to you. State higher education center across the street here, where technically it's closed. Is that part of the plan from what you all are hearing to try to get that traffic access by tomorrow morning?
We're hoping to. At least one lane in each direction.
Okay. I appreciate you both. Chief Barry Carrier, thank you. Sheriff Dexter Lunsford, thank you. I appreciate it. We are going to, I'm sure, be talking more as we go through the evening ahead. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So we do have, as I mentioned, an institution of higher learning right across the street here. We do have another institution of learning across the street here as well. You have people who live really below the airport, but many who live up the road from the airport, and so traffic really right now seems to be the big concern. Earlier it was burning jet fuel, but it is seeming like, Blake, that we have an improving situation there. The smoke coming out from underneath the road almost gone now, and that's a big change from earlier. The big feeling here tonight, so thankful that those 3 family members with the Earnhardt family, Dale Jr., his wife and child, and those 2 pilots were able to get off of a burning plane in just the right time. Blake Lipton, back to you.
Yeah, and that's very true, Josh. Thank you very much. Well, in a statement just released by the Carter County Sheriff's Office, it says, quote, initial reports indicate that all passengers made it off the jet alive. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was transported to the hospital. We do not have word on his condition at this time, and his family has requested all inquiries about his injuries be directed to Mr. Earnhardt's PR firm. And check this out. Video just obtained by News Channel 11. As you can see, passengers on that plane running from the wreckage after it crashed this morning. Again, emergency crews on the scene say everyone was able to get off the plane without suffering serious injuries. And to recap this all, if you're just joining us now, this breaking news out of Elizabethton: a plane carrying Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his wife crashed around 3:38 at the end of the runway at Elizabethton Municipal Airport. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was transported to Johnson City Medical Center to be checked out. And according to emergency officials, everyone made it off the plane according to the FAA, and no injuries were reported there. So very thankful for that. Highway 91 remains closed at this hour. The FAA and the National Transportation Safety Board will be investigating the cause of this crash. We'll continue to follow this breaking news, and we'll update you as soon as we learn more information all throughout the night. Check for those updates on our free WJHL News app. You can also go to WJHL.com. Well, coming up on ABC Tri-Cities at 6:30, we'll take you back to the Elizabethton Airport, where a plane carrying Dale Earnhardt Jr. crashed this afternoon. The latest on that right after the break. Carrying Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his wife crashed at the Elizabethton Airport. Here is video from the scene earlier that we obtained today. As you can see, flames nearly engulfed the plane. Justin Soto arrived at the scene just moments after that crash, where he continues to learn more about it. Justin, what have you learned?
Well, police tape is still blocking off the scene here in Elizabethton after Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s plane crashed here at the end of the runway at Elizabethton Airport, crashing through a gate and coming to rest here in the middle of the road, a busy road here in Elizabethton. As you can tell behind me, this is still a very active scene, and a large scene, I should point out. The police tape really goes around hundreds and hundreds of feet around this entire area as they ensure that people do not get in the way of this investigation. As we now know, the NTSB is sending 2 investigators to Elizabethton to investigate the cause of this crash here this afternoon that happened around 3:40. And we know Dale Earnhardt Jr. was on board, as well as his wife and child, and a captain and a co-captain here on board. And take a closer look at the scene here. You can see the damage clearly this evening as the sun continues to beam down on this crash site here in Elizabethton. You can tell the engine has significant damage, as well as the wing. The left wing on the left-hand side still pretty much looks intact, as I pointed out earlier, but as you can tell, as you get closer into the actual portion of the plane, it's really just charred remains of a plane. And as you can tell, we still have plenty of investigators here on scene. We've seen multiple agencies authorities, as well as the fire department. They've been looking closely. We can zoom out a little bit. They've been looking closely at this waterway here as jet fuel has leaked in various directions as a result of this crash. We know there's been around 1,000 gallons of jet fuel on board this plane as they were getting ready to get around the airport. We know there's 1,000 gallons of jet fuel on board the plane here, and we know that a significant amount of it did leak out of the plane as a result of this crash. And we have seen certain portions of it burning and smoldering throughout the evening, but it does appear that every portion of jet fuel that we did see smoking earlier has since been put out. So that's good news here, and we're told as they get closer to the plane, they've been able to put out all the jet fuel that was smoldering earlier. So that's good news. It does seem to be a secure scene at this time, but as we know, we want to leave it to the experts here as they continue to investigate the cause of this crash. And that's really the story going to be moving forward. We want to hear more from Dale Earnhardt Jr. as well as his family. Hopefully we'll get to hear more updates from him and his family throughout the evening as we continue to try to find out what happened here in this investigation and what happened to this plane. And we see more investigators coming on scene here. We have the fire department, and we've also seen the mayor of Elizabethton. He was out here earlier, it appeared like with his family coming through here, making sure that the scene is secure. And actually there's a Chick-fil-A truck here in front of us. It looks like they're dropping off food to everyone here on scene. If you can take a look, that's a Chick-fil-A van arriving here on scene. Looks like they're going to be bringing food and water, lemonade, their signature lemonade probably, to all the first responders here working the scene in Elizabethton after Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s plane crashed here this afternoon. We should point out the American Red Cross was also on scene. They're still on scene. They have their disaster relief unit here assisting and providing supplies to all the first responders who've come out here and who have been working the scene throughout the evening. There's also a tent set up over there, so I would imagine they're gathering. Of course, these first responders need a break in this hot sun as they continue to investigate the cause of this crash here. And the witnesses that I've been talking to, none of them have wanted to go on camera with me as of right now, but they've been describing what they seem to have heard was a car crash. Of course, this is a busy road. They imagined that it was a car crashing, actually, because if you're close to a roadway and you work nearby, if you hear a crashing noise, it would imagine it'd be a car crash, but it was a very different scene when they decided to look out their windows, and it turns out it was a plane crash. So a very different scene in what they'd expect. They saw a fire, they saw smoke, and it really sounded like a boom, like a car crash, but unfortunately a very different scene. But the good news that we can tell you is that everyone was able to walk away with their life here this afternoon in Elizabethton. So we're going to continue to follow updates as this plane crash investigation continues throughout the night.
Elizabethton Municipal Airport, I'm joined live by the airport manager, Dan Cogan. Thank you very much for your time. Give us the status of operations here at the airport and the plan for the night ahead.
Right now, we've suspended operations and expect to reopen within an hour or two. Waiting for the fire chief to give us clearance and make sure all the fire's out, and so no takeoffs or landings will affect his operations.
You have a damaged fence that does not stop you from reopening the airport, right?
No, we can still reopen with the fence being damaged.
Some have asked throughout the day, why was NASCAR legend landing his plane here? This happens, you say, on race weekends. It's typical?
Yes, we land aircraft of mid-sized jets all the time.
And you had heard that there were other NASCAR drivers that came in here earlier today, is that right?
I don't know who came in earlier. We had a lot of traffic today.
Yeah, jet traffic.
Jet traffic, yes, sir.
So not unusual for Dale Earnhardt Jr. or someone else in a plane like that to fly into this airport?
No, not unusual at all.
Yeah. This, in my memory, has not happened. Is this the first in your memory of something of this magnitude?
Yes. This is the worst I've experienced in my 10 years here. But, thank God everyone made it out alive and minor injuries.
And Dan, you go onto this highway every day yourself, so you know it is a very busy road, and your runway comes very close to it, and it was built that way. I would think worst case scenario involves something like this, where a plane would go off into traffic, and yet the worst did not happen.
Correct. Yeah, we were lucky.
Do you see this, so other than, the word to the public is this runway is about to reopen within the next few hours, it seems.
That's what I'm anticipating.
And is that back to total normal operations here?
Should be, yes.
Should be. All right. Dan Cogan, airport manager, thank you. I know it's been an incredibly busy afternoon. I appreciate your time.
All right,
thank you so much. So yeah, some news there. This airport, which has been at full stop for the past several hours, is going to be reopening soon. As we wrap up here, you can see what remains, according to the authorities here, an active situation because of jet fuel. Jet fuel, a derivative, or not a derivative, but very similar to diesel and kerosene in that it will burn off but when it gets into water, they're saying the best thing that could have happened did happen, is that fire then burned it out before it was able to get into connecting waterways here into the Watauga on into the city of Elizabethton. We are anticipating, and you can see there's a setup beginning for what appears to be a media briefing. We're also seeing news media arriving from all over. We've heard that the network news is coming as well. That is because Dale Earnhardt Jr., his wife, his child, all were involved in a plane crash here today. All were able to get out of a burning plane, and according to the fire chief of Elizabethton, were able to get out just in the nick of time. When EMS arrived and when firefighters arrived, they said they saw a plane fully engulfed. And we now know it was because a wing of that plane, when the plane went through the fence, apparently the wing grounded out, and that damaged the fuel line, and fuel then began to gush out, and there was a fire that ended up consuming the majority of that plane. Tonight, what we know of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his family is that they've been transported to the hospital. They have communicated that they are okay, and I can assure you that what I'm hearing from everyone here walking around is primarily this: thank God that they're all right. Thank God those two pilots were okay. Thank God that no one on Highway 91, this busy road where traffic is always flowing, especially at the time of day it was, because there's a Center for Higher Learning across the street, that no one was injured, and that EMS headquarters were less than a half mile away. So just an amazing turn of events here today. Our live coverage continues on ABC Tri-Cities in Elizabethton. More coming up in just a moment.
Not appear at this time that weather was a factor. Partly cloudy skies, 84 degrees there. And for the rest of the area tonight, we are quiet. We're holding on to mostly fair skies. And by the way, at the time of that incident, we had showers in North Carolina moving away from Tennessee. So again, weather not a factor at this time.
All right, Mark, thank you very much. We'll continue our live coverage of the plane crash at the Elizabethton Airport. Switch to News Channel 11 right now for the latest.
Of a runway. That plane went through a fence, part of it onto Highway 91, and that wreckage was on fire. And it now seems that we are about to begin a news conference. I'm going to just basically walk with you and get closer in here as we're able to maybe get a little closer to where they're going to be. This is Sheriff Dexter Lunsford, who's going to be joining us here in just a few moments. We're very close to that news briefing beginning. I'll continue until I hear from them. But in essence, what we now have is a burned out plane. We have fuel that was from that jet that has now, it appears, burned off. It got into a drainage area that was kind of going away from the crash site. And now it seems the biggest concern is, first and foremost, that the Earnhardts are okay. And it appears that for the most part they are, despite needing to be taken to the hospital for some precautions, that the two pilots are okay. That really has been the primary concern here. But it's also figuring out how to get a burned out Cessna jet off of a state highway, how to make sure that 1,000 gallons of jet fuel does not get into the waterway, this drainage ditch, which feeds into a pond, which feeds into the Watauga River, which then goes through the waterway network in our area. So that's really kind of the main thing. Law enforcement agencies have been very accessible in releasing information, but we're told here in a few moments they're going to come back out here into this tent area and brief the public on what's happening. The good news here, Blake Lipton, we are in a situation where there were no fatalities. And when you look at that plane and you see the extent of the damage there, that is what many here are calling an absolute miracle. We'll toss it back to you from now. We expect this news briefing to pick up here in just a few moments. We'll head to you now.
All right, Josh, thank you very much, and we will certainly get you back to that news conference as soon as it happens. Now, we want to read you this, a statement released by the Carter County Sheriff's Office not too long ago. Initial reports indicate, this is what they're saying, that all passengers made it off the jet alive. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was transported to the hospital. We do not have word on his condition at this time, and his family has requested all inquiries about his injuries be directed to Mr. Earnhardt's PR firm. Now, Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s sister, Kelly Earnhardt, informed Junior fans via Twitter about the crash, confirming Dale, his wife Amy, and their daughter were on board the plane that crashed. She tweeted, "All were taken to a hospital for evaluation." And check this out here. Video obtained by News Channel 11 not too long ago. As you can see, passengers on that plane running from the wreckage after it crashed this morning. Again, emergency crews on scene say everyone was able to get off the plane without suffering serious injuries there. And to recap this breaking news out of Elizabethton, if you're just joining us, a plane carrying Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his wife crashed around 3:38 at the end of the runway at Elizabethton Municipal Airport. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was transported to Johnson City Medical Center to be checked out. According to emergency officials, everyone made it off the plane, according to the FAA, and no injuries were reported there. Highway 91 remains closed at this hour. The FAA and the National Transportation Safety Board will be investigating the cause of that crash. We're also awaiting a media briefing, which should happen in just moments. We'll get you to that as soon as it happens. We'll continue to follow this breaking news, and we'll update you as soon as we learn more information. Check for those updates on our free WJHL News app and WJHL.com.
Left is Elizabeth Police Chief Jason Shaw. So if you've got any questions, we'll take them at this time.
Sheriff, what can you tell us about when the call first came in, what you were dealing with as the scene first you got here on the scene?
Well, I got here within just 5 minutes, and Elizabethton Police Department and Elizabethton Fire Department is already on the scene. This is in the city limits. So we're more in a support role than anything else, but the airplane was fully engulfed. All the people had gotten out of it. The fire department did an exceptional job extinguishing the flame. 5 occupants, no one's injured. Under the circumstances, we're extremely blessed and fortunate.
Sheriff, what have you heard about Dale Earnhardt and his family and the 2 pilots?
We have not. We won't get into that. It's him being who he is. He has people that press people that were releasing information as to his injuries and his family's injuries.
It seems like it was an absolute incredible stroke of good luck that they got off that plane. Can you talk to us about the timing from what you've heard in terms of them able to get off that plane before it was too late?
Chief, you want to carry it?
Well, I think the first word that comes to my mind is they are very lucky. And one thing that strikes me since I've been looking at the scene a little bit closer is the fact when it came through the fence wrapped around the airplane, and there's a section there that the fence is wrapped around the plane. If that would have been where the door was, it would have been a lot more difficult for them to get the door open. So it looks like everything worked in their favor instead of against them.
At first, we'd heard that maybe the plane was not on fire when they got off the plane, but that's not the case. It was burning as they got off of it. Is that correct?
I think it was burning when they got off of it, yes. According to some witness statements, just after it hit the ground, it started burning.
Gentlemen, did you get reports that were there witnesses to the actual incident?
Yes, they were witnesses to the incident.
What have they been able to tell you about what happened?
Well, I haven't been able to speak to them personally yet. We took some statements, and they'll be talking to the NTSB in the morning.
What's the timetable for investigation and any early findings just from an observational standpoint?
No, that's beyond our scope. When the FAA and the NTSB gets here in the morning, they'll start their investigation. In the meantime, we're just preserving evidence.
What's the scene like at this point? I know you've had a very active scene for several hours.
Well, it's calmed down a lot now. We had some fire burning with fuel runoff, but that's pretty much burned itself out, and what we could put out, we got out. And we're just protecting the environment right now and preserving the evidence.
Chief, we're standing way back here. Can you describe what the plane looks like, the damage to it, and what's left of it?
Well, it's there's a door near the front, a nose of the plane. Beyond that, it's pretty much destroyed. The nose of the plane and the door were intact.
Chief, what did you see when you got here? When your guys got on scene, what were there?
The first arriving unit reported flames visible, but the occupants were already out of the plane.
Were the flames coming from an area where they would have been sitting?
I'm sure they were, yes.
We'd heard that Dale Jr. at one point was on the ground and that his family was with him. Can you tell us what your eyewitnesses saw in terms of the people on that plane?
Just that he was there. And he was having a little bit of trouble, but I think they transported him non-emergency, and that's really all I know about his medical condition.
Wife and daughter?
Yes.
I believe the airport is set to reopen, so there was no damage to the runway?
Correct. Yeah, the airport should be open now.
Any idea what you're dealing with the road? You had some concerns with the highway out here as well.
Well, we were afraid that we were having some heat under the bottom of the road, so we're just going to make sure that that's cooled off and that there's no damage. And we should be able to get it open back up pretty soon.
When will the federal investigators get here?
I'm anticipating in the morning.
So you think you'll be able to open 91 back up tonight?
At least partially, but Chief Shaw probably should answer that.
As far as for the traffic plan, Highway 91 is going to be closed in this section at least till this time tomorrow. We've got a temporary detour. TDOT's helping, in addition to the Elizabeth Street Department, helping set up a detour just right behind us here to Industrial Drive, to A.Y. McDonald Drive, to Avenue, to Judge Don Lewis Avenue, to the next traffic light we see. We'll basically be able to loop the traffic, but we need our residents, anybody in the area, to avoid the area if they absolutely can. Of course, we've got 2 schools to operate in the morning, TCAT, Northeast State Community College, all the other businesses, the airport. So there is traffic that does need to get in the area, but we just really need everybody to avoid it as much as you can if possible. That's going to help with the situation and the congestion.
So you're not reopening 91 tonight?
91 is not going to be open tonight in this section. We're going to be able to have 2 lanes through the detour shortly, but the actual section of the roadway adjacent to the airport where the crash occurred is going to be closed. We're concerned with the fire from the fuel that was underneath the roadway. That has to cool. That has to be checked environmentally. And of course, TDOT has to inspect the bridge to make sure that there's the structural integrity is there before traffic can be on there.
Any idea how long the fuselage is going to remain there on the side of the road?
I do not have any idea on that.
Even after they're released, the scene, it'll take hours.
What's going to be done to protect the scene?
Picked up. We're going to have Elizabeth Police Department officers, Highway Patrol officers, and our officers here to protect the scene 24/7 until NTSB releases us.
Chief Carrier, you said there was a fence wrapped around the fuselage.
That's what it looks like to me.
What part of the fuselage?
Around the middle of the fuselage.
And were there any skid marks on the runway?
I don't know.
Don't know. Yeah.
So you're saying it went through the fence and appears to have took part of the fence with it, and that could have been really bad if it had blocked the exit from.
Had blocked the exit, yes, that could have been really bad, but they were very lucky.
EMS was incredibly close.
They're really close, and they're really professional. They do a great job.
Can you lighten us on your investigation versus what NTSB and FAA are going to do? Obviously, they'll take over, but for now, do y'all just secure the scene and keep everybody back?
Yes, for now, we just make sure that we mitigate the hazard as much as we can and keep the scene protected and keep the public protected.
When did NTSB say they would be here?
I'm expecting them early in the morning.
Just your reactions as people who've dealt with this scene in terms of just how close this was.
You know, I guess the only word I can say is that they were extremely lucky. That's the way I feel. But our firefighters were on the scene quickly and did a great job.
How fast were you able to get those flames knocked down?
A couple of minutes.
Were there any cars directly impacted by this accident?
I'm sorry?
Were there any cars directly impacted?
No. And that's another lucky spot. I mean, this is a heavily traveled roadway, especially at 3:30 in the afternoon. Extremely heavy. And the fact that there was no one injured, we're extremely lucky, blessed.
Anything from you about just how amazing the escape was? I mean, I don't want to portray it what it is, but it sounds like they escaped. Is that a fair assessment from what you've heard?
That's what it sounds like to me. I've been working as far as trying to support the operation and work on the traffic plan, so Chief Carrier knows more about the operations, but I do know we thank very much the EMS, the response from the EMS, of course, Elizabeth Fire Department, sheriff's deputies, my folks at the police department. Of course, we were also assisted by the volunteer fire departments, in addition to Stony Creek Volunteer Fire Department responding to help on this end. We also had the other fire departments in the county covering the city of Elizabethton with units, and several of them also have brought equipment for their overnight security as far as light towers. Of course, we have help from in addition to the initial response of the Carter County EMS and Rescue Squad. They have a support system here set up for us for the safety and security of the other responders. They also have the equipment for our command post here and rehab. So we appreciate all the help to all the agencies that have helped.
I understand that EMS was like a few hundred yards away. Where exactly are they located?
South of the scene, about a quarter of a mile.
Did any of it get into the pond and the river, from what you can tell? Any of the fuel?
I don't think so. I think we got there quick enough with some docking material that we kept it out of the pond.
And are we okay in saying that he escaped and his family escaped?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. And all the first responders do such a great job. And you know, first responders across the nation are stressed, and they always do the right thing. So I want to thank all the people that helped on this scene, Chief Shaw and his guys, and Sheriff and his men, volunteer firemen, all the people, the EMS guys, even Johnson City Fire Chief was calling me wanting to know if we needed anything, and he had a couple of trucks on standby for us. So when those kind of things happen, we all work together really well.
If you had to guess, this crash scene will be on that road for at least 24 hours?
I think so, yeah. I think so.
Anything else?
Thank you all, gentlemen.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
You just heard live coverage of a news conference that just wrapped up here. These local law enforcement answering all the questions that they can. Forgive me, I've just spent the last 10 minutes to get down on one knee. I'm going to go back around this way as we work to get out of the group of reporters that have assembled here. I think the real takeaway from that is that, you know, for people who live in this area, you're going to be able to get right around the crash site. But for people who are coming, you know, trying to get, say, for instance, from Elizabethton up Highway 91 to upper parts of Stony Creek into Carter County, this road is going to remain closed through this one section, which means you're going to have to go through what's called the Broad Street Extension. That's the Lynn Valley side of this place. You heard it, one after another, just an amazement that the Earnhardts and their pilots are okay tonight, and we're now what continues to be an active scene as we wait for federal investigators to get here. For now, Josh Smith reporting live in Elizabeth, and now back to you.
Well, we're continuing to follow the latest developments after a plane carrying Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his wife crashed at the Elizabethton Airport. Febin Casahoon joins us live from the Johnson City Medical Center where Dale Earnhardt was taken for non-life-threatening injuries. Febin, what's the latest?
Hey Blake, this is where Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his family were taken. This is Johnson City Medical Center. Now that's according to the Carter County Sheriff's Office. Thankfully, they were being treated for minor injuries. That is just cuts and abrasions. I mean, you've seen the videos, you've seen the photos. It is truly a miracle that they were able to walk away with just these minor injuries. Now, I'm told that they were also accompanied by their baby daughter, the family dog, and even 2 people on board, including a pilot. Now, that's about 5 people on board. Now, again, you've seen those photos. Thankfully, it's truly a miracle that they were able to walk away from this. Now, I'm told that, according to the airport manager, Dan Kogan, this plane was a private plane. It ended up, when it was landing, it veered off and ended up crashing. Now, that area, that's Highway 91 at Industrial Drive. That is closed until further notice. Now, again, a miracle. It's crazy that this happened. And again, we will continue to bring you more information as we continue to learn more information about this. Reporting live in Johnson City, Febin Casahoon, News Channel 11.
It took part of the fence with it. And we learned within the past few minutes at that news conference that there is visible fencing around part of the plane. And the fire chief remarked how incredible it was that did not impede the door to the plane, because had it come back any further, he said, it could have prevented them from easily getting off, and that could have, of course, gone in a very very awful direction. They were able to get off the plane on their own strength. That plane, when it then goes through that fence, we're told the wing got into the ground somehow, and then it spun onto part of the highway. At that point, jet fuel is leaking out of the plane and into a ditch. And we're talking a lot. We're seeing actually the airport open now. There goes a plane just taking off. That's probably the second plane that's taken off in the last few minutes. So because of the fact that plane came to a stop where it did, and that jet fuel leaked out where it did, it went into a ditch, and that ditch feeds into a pond area, and that pond area then would feed into a river. And so it then became a very, very critical operation to stop the jet fuel, about 1,000 gallons of it, from getting into the Watauga River, because that, as you know, flows into the city of Elizabethton and then into the city of Johnson City and beyond. Fortunately, it seems that the burning jet fuel has stopped. There's no more burning of it, no more smoke coming out from under the road. And now is where we stand is this. TDOT is here. They're working to reopen that sort of mini detour for local traffic. TDOT engineers are going to come out and inspect the road because we had a fire underneath the highway. Heated concrete has to be inspected by TDOT. That's going to be happening tonight. And then the wait is on for NTSB and FAA to get here. Once they complete their investigation, then what's left of that plane can be removed from Highway 91. Until then, the overwhelming sense from here is just of gratitude that those 5 people made it off that plane and that family pet, and that tonight no fatalities. No one on a very busy highway in a car passing by was injured, and no traffic was even touched by that plane. Truly remarkable. We are going to continue our work here tonight and bring you the very latest tonight at 11 o'clock and even throughout this newscast ahead. For now, I'm Josh Smith, reporting live on ABC Tri-Cities in Elizabethton. Blake Lipton, back to you.
All right, Josh, thank you very much. And we want to read you this official statement released by the Carter County Sheriff's Office. It says, quote, initial reports indicate that all passengers made it off the jet alive. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was transported to the hospital. We do not have word on his condition at this time, and his family has requested all inquiries about his injuries be directed to Mr. Earnhardt's PR firm. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s sister, Kelly Earnhardt, informed Junior fans via Twitter about the crash, confirming Dale, his wife Amy, and their daughter were on board the plane that crashed. She tweeted, all were taken to the hospital for evaluation there. We'll continue to follow this breaking news, and we'll update you as soon as we learn more information. Check for those updates on our WJHL News app as well as WJHL.com. All right, Mark, thank you very much. And we're continuing to follow the latest developments after a plane carrying Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his wife crashed at the Elizabethton Airport. Febin Cassahoon joins us live from the Johnson City Medical Center, where Dale Earnhardt was taken for non-life-threatening injuries. Febin, what's the latest?
Blake, now I'm standing right in front of the Johnson City Medical Center where Dale Earnhardt Jr. was being treated for minor injuries. Thankfully, he and his family and his baby daughter were being treated for cuts and abrasions. Now, that's according to the Carter County Sheriff's Office. Now, I'm told that, thankfully it was minor. That plane crash, the videos, you've seen them, it was just massive. Now, because of that plane crash, since the investigation was ongoing, Highway 91 on Industrial Drive was closed. Now, according to the communications officer, Mark Nagy with the Tennessee Department of Transportation, says that this will be a long-term closure for State Route 91 in Elizabethton. As the jet fuel in the runway burns off, State Route 91 is expected to remain closed near Elizabethton Airport until Friday evening at the earliest. Now, we're told that this was a private plane that had ended up crashing off of the runway at the Elizabethton Municipal Airport. Thankfully, everyone was able to get out alive. That is, Earnhardt's wife, he himself, his baby daughter, the pilots, as well as the family dog. Of course, we will continue to keep you updated on air and online. Live in Johnson City, Febin Cassahoon, back to you, Blake.
All right, Febin, thank you very much. We'll be right back. And now to recap some of that breaking news we saw out of Elizabethton. Plane carrying Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his wife, as well as a dog and one of their children as well, and a few other passengers, crashed about 3:38 at the end of the runway at the Elizabethton Municipal Airport. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was transported to Johnson City Medical Center to be checked out. According to emergency officials, everyone made it off the plane. And according to the FAA, no injuries were reported. Highway 91 remains closed at this hour. Detours are being set up. The FAA and the National Transportation Safety Board will be investigating the cause of the crash. We thank you so much for joining us here today. Throughout all this news coverage, we hope you have a great evening.